Do you remember those t-shirts with the stick figures and some cheesy saying, right? I had one years ago, forever ago, that said, I'm falling apart here. And it had the arms and the legs all kind of askew, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Is it just me? It was a really big thing, probably in the 90s, I'm guessing. But yeah, that was a favorite t-shirt of mine because at the time, oh yeah, it so perfectly represented how I felt inside. I literally felt like I was falling apart. I actually spoke those words over me. Man, I wish I knew now what wish I knew then what I know now about how powerful words are. But you don't ever want to speak those negative words over yourself. And you would never say that to your daughter or granddaughter. So, it's just we have to be very mindful that words have power. But that is something I would speak over myself. I'm falling apart. I just feel like I'm falling apart. And, you laugh about it and move on, right? Maybe you have felt that way too over the last few years or even more recently. Women who are holding everything together are feeling like they are quietly falling apart. Quietly, I say, because they don't look like they're falling apart on the outside. They don't talk about how they might be feeling like they're falling apart or they feel like things are just not like they used to be. They might not be talking about that as much. You might not be talking about it very much. And yet, as a high achieving woman, you are exhausted. You are struggling with brain fog. You are struggling with sleep. And you are remembering the appointments. You're leading the meetings. You're keeping the teams on track. You're answering those texts. You are building your business. You are checking in on everyone and doing all of the things, right? You continue to produce. You continue to perform. You keep holding it all together. And you do it so consistently, so reliably that almost nobody around you realizes how deeply exhausted you really are. And it's really affecting you because you're tired in a way that sleep just stopped fixing a long time ago. You can literally sleep 8 hours a day or 8 hours a night and wake up in the morning and feel like you didn't sleep a wink. You are feeling so tired that in such a way that a vacation doesn't really fix. It helps it for a few days, but then within a few days of you being back home, the weight of that fatigue comes right back. You're tired in a way that is actually starting to scare you a little bit, even if you have not spoken those words out loud. But you've probably Googled it. You have searched it. You have had labs done. You've been told everything looks normal, right? You've probably told yourself, I just need to manage my stress better. I need to sleep better. I need to drink more water, get to bed earlier. I need to eat better. And you're probably trying those things and you're still exhausted. High achieving women are the most exhausted women in the room, and nobody's talking about it. Hi, I'm Michelle, your high functioning fatigue expert, and I am so happy that you are here with me today. This is what I want you to understand about yourself as we are having this conversation. Waking up tired after 8 hours of sleep is common. It's common, but it's not normal. Needing caffeine to function by 9 a.m., it's common, but it's not normal. We don't need, we shouldn't need the caffeine, right? Forgetting words mid-sentence, crashing hard by 2 p.m., getting a second wind, at 8 p.m., and then you're tired but wired and can't fall asleep. These are signals. These are signals your body is giving you. Your body has been sending you these signals for quite a while. And the fact is that it's not just you that may not be taking them seriously because you're doing the thing. You're going to your doctor, you're getting your labs checked, but they're not taking it seriously. And just because they're not taking it seriously does not mean it's not real. So you hang on to the fact that you are your own best advocate for your health. You know when something's not right. So keep digging, keep asking those questions, right? It just means you've been going to the wrong places for the answers, or you give up because you've had that clean bill of health, right? Especially if you're one that just goes to your annual checkup. Everything looks good. Okay. We do not want to kick the lab test can down the road. We don't want to kick sickness down the road, wellness down the road. We want to know, and our body does tell us well before something goes wrong. So, the symptoms that you are feeling, that fatigue, the brain fog, the lack of joy and just lack of energy, it's what I call high functioning fatigue because you're still performing, but this high functioning fatigue is one of the most overlooked health realities among women, high functioning, high achieving women in midlife, specifically in the midlife season today. And so, because of that, I want to talk about some realities that I have seen in women who are struggling with high functioning fatigue. And I want you to see where you relate to these. Okay, so the first one is the most capable women are often the most depleted. The most capable women are often the most depleted. What does that mean? You may actually be nodding your head. Yep, that's me. Because you're the last person that most people check on, right? You look fine. You're on the outside. You're performing well. You're still leading. You're still carrying the weight of your work. You're juggling everything, your family, your home, your service, often your aging parents by this point, and you're doing it with a smile, without complaint, and mostly without slowing down. Slowing down is starting to happen, but mostly you're not fully missing a beat just yet, or some things you might be missing a beat on, some things you might be stumbling over, but it depends on the task, right? So I can't just say across the board you're slowing down because it could just be certain tasks, things that you have to think harder about, like creating content or running those sales meetings at, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That might be harder. So this is why this high functioning fatigue goes on unaddressed, I should say, unaddressed for so long because you are still showing up, you are still performing. And studies have shown that nearly 1 in 4 women report feeling fatigued most days of the week. Women are twice as likely as men to experience chronic fatigue, chronic exhaustion. And yet, most doctor appointments end within that 7 to 8 minute time frame with a prescription you never asked for or a suggestion to sleep more or reduce your stress. That, my friend, is not a solution. That is a dismissal. And look, the thing is, eventually the cost starts showing up somewhere. Even though you may feel like you've left with a clean bill of health, you might be sitting in your car after that appointment with more questions than answers. But the truth of the matter is, life keeps lifing. You got to keep going. So you don't have a whole lot of time to sit there and digest everything that just transpired in that 7 to 8 minutes. You have a life to live. You have a job to run. You have people to care for. And so you just keep going. But that cost shows up somewhere else in your life, right? You start to lose your spark. You start to lose your joy. Your resilience starts to drop. Your reactivity comes up a little bit. Like you're reacting a little bit stronger than you used to, right? You start having more emotion around things that you never used to have emotion over. And then on the flip side, you stop feeling emotionally connected to some people and some things that you once were. You start basically operating from a place of survival instead of the peace that God has for you. And this leads to you feeling spiritually dry or disconnected, flat, just kind of checking boxes with your quiet time, right? It's basically your bucket is dry, okay? You are giving it occasional drops and drips, but for the most part, it's on the drier side and you keep pushing the limit. Like, when you purposely pass by a gas station when your tank is on E and you'll ride on fumes until it's more of a convenient time, right? I mean, that might be a little bit of an embellishment, but think about it. How many times have you glanced at your fuel gauge and thought, I can push it off a bit more? And now I want you to think about, okay, how many times have you done that to yourself? Skipping meals, skipping rest, skipping sleep, skipping joy-filled activities. This push through mindset is a very real reality in midlife women. And many women just assume that that is what success costs. Success in their career or in their business or whatever it is that they are doing. They feel like midlife aging feels like this. They feel like the reality is it's unavoidable, right? It is an unavoidable reality in our crazy tech-driven modern life that we live in. The way that you are feeling right now is normal because it's so common and everyone else is feeling every single one of these frustrations, right? Yes, and because it's also none of those things. Your body is responding exactly the way God designed it to respond to chronic overload. The issue is you don't think you're under chronic overload. You feel like it is just life and you just need to deal with it. And the reality of that is that you have normalized functioning in a constant state of stress. You are normalizing how you feel as chalking it up to it's midlife or it's this or that or this is just how it is now. This is my lot in life. And you've compensated. You have compensated. And compensation is not the same thing as true wellness, being well, or optimal health. It's just not. So that is something to consider. And the second thing to consider is your nervous system, as God designed it, was never designed for this constant output, this chronic overload. God designed the stress response system for short bursts, like the emergency, being chased by the lion. You've heard that expression. It's so true. Our ancestors would have an output, massive output of cortisol to get them through the danger. And then, you think about David in the Bible, right? Like David killed a bear with his own hands, killed a lion with his own hands. He was just fierce. Like that's Holy Spirit inspired strength, right? But also there was a threat and his nervous system that God designed responded to the threat, but it was temporary. And then the threat was over. The danger was gone. The difficult season was over. But here's the thing in our modern life. Years of constant mental pressure, emotional suppression, like we're suppressing our emotions, we're holding everything, we're bottling everything in, swallowing down our voice, swallowing down how we feel. We are overstimulated, massively overstimulated. We are constantly multitasking. We are constantly rushing. We have just head to toe inflammation in the body that is causing more and more problems. And just really the unrealistic expectations that we put on ourselves and allow others to put on us to keep performing no matter how depleted you feel. Is this touching a nerve anywhere? When stress becomes chronic, the cortisol just stops acting like a support and it starts becoming just a constant drain. When we are constantly pumping out cortisol, eventually we will not have any left. It's like leaving that garden hose on drip, 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 drip. Now, you think it's doing good because it's not this constant rush of water, but over time, your water bill is going to go up and your hose is just constantly leaking. So there's a cost to that, right? So it's draining this constant cortisol drip and flooding of cortisol is a it is impacting every body system, your thyroid, your digestion, your brain, your sleep, your hormones, like everything, right? It's all connected and it's all affected. So the brain fog that you keep dismissing, the difficulty having concentrating on what you're focusing on, the inability to regulate emotionally, you're more reactive than you used to be, the feeling like your mind is constantly on, but you're just spent, you've got nothing left, you're like emotionally drained when you get home. These are signals, okay? These are signals your body is giving you. Your body is communicating that your system is on overload, right? And most high functioning, high achieving women have spent years overriding those signals, right? In the name of productivity, responsibility, leadership service, all of that, right? We override it, we ignore it, we ask more of our body to keep going until your exhaustion becomes your baseline. That's where you're at, your baseline. I remember for me when I actually got my results back from my cortisol to see my cortisol, just not even any other hormones, just the cortisol. It was below the baseline. It was so low, it was below the low baseline. And they wanted to retest that 2 weeks later, and it was even lower. So, why? High functioning fatigue, continuing to function through the fog and through the fatigue, still producing, still showing up, still performing, still juggling, but underneath all of that, running on fumes, running on reserves, drips, drops in the bucket. So, I don't want that for you because God will make you lie down like he did me. So that leads me to number three. Your labs look terrible. Sorry, I said that wrong. Your labs look normal, but you still feel terrible. So you get the clear bill of health. Everything's good. Everything looks normal, but you physically still feel terrible, right? This is where a lot of women start to doubt themselves. They have done the right thing. They go to the doctor, and a lot of women that come to me, they've pushed off even going to the doctor because for whatever various reasons. But then they finally do ask for help, and then they get a pat answer or a non-answer or a dismissal. They're told that their labs look fine. And so the truth is, conventional medicine is designed to identify disease. We have a disease management system. It is not designed to find the root cause. There's a massive difference between being disease free and truly well, living with optimal health, or even living in good health, like 3 John 2 speaks about. And most exhausted women are living in that gap between disease free and being truly well. So the reference ranges on your lab results, those are built around population averages, not optimal function for a woman. We're just going to talk about midlife for a woman over 40. Okay. So if your number for your vitamin D, let's say, lands anywhere in between this range, which is very, very wide, by the way, for a lot of lab tests, you're sent home with a clean bill of health, right? Especially if you look on the outside completely healthy. And this is where I don't talk about it much, but there's this term called skinny sick. And that is where you are thin and you look good on the outside, but your body is literally crying out on the inside. You are sick on the inside. And I don't use it very often because I don't like to put labels on like skinny sick. Like I don't want you to be sick. Of course not. You don't want to be sick, and I don't want to label anybody as sick. But the reality is we are 2/3 of the way sick or unwell before a diagnosis is even made. And that's a diagnosis we don't even want. So just something to be aware of. And I lived that myself, that skinny sick, like looked good on the outside, was falling apart on the inside. And so staying average within conventional ranges, it's not necessarily optimal. Okay. So when I look at blood work through a functional lens, I'm looking at way more than whether your numbers kind of cleared a threshold, like are they within the range, right? I'm looking at where inside that range they are sitting. You can be in the normal range, even in functional medicine. But if you're on the low or high side of that range, I still sit up and like take notice of that, right? Because I am looking at patterns that your body is creating across multiple markers and what those patterns are actually saying together. Remember, the body is always speaking. So let me give you a for instance. Ferritin, which is not checked very often. Usually it's an iron marker, but ferritin with an addition is not checked very often. But if you are struggling with fatigue, it is definitely something you should be asking for. So ferritin is what iron is stored in your body. Okay, what your body actually uses for energy. So it can be at the very bottom of the normal range, but you feel like you are walking through quicksand. Okay. Your doctor calls it fine because you're in the normal range. You know, you haven't gone outside of the normal range, but you feel like you're walking through quicksand. Same thing with your thyroid, same thing with vitamin D. Thyroid, you could be losing hair, you could have consistently cold hands and feet. You could be gaining weight around your middle. You could be waking up exhausted, drained after sleeping 8 or 9 hours a night. Your and you could be considered fine because, well, for one, thyroid, they only check the TSH, and that's wrong. You need a full thyroid panel. But anyway, I digress. But there's just a lot that's connected there. Okay. So your body is giving you signals, it's showing patterns even in your blood. And your afternoon energy, or lack of your sleep quality, all of these things are patterns that your body is showing, signals your body is giving, and they don't really show up as a problem on a conventional standard blood panel. But the fact is, your body's always speaking, right? So a trained holistic eye knows what your body is trying to say. And there's a lot that we can do in between the next lab order to, change things, make things better. So conventional medicine asks, are you sick? I ask if you're well. I ask you to ask yourself, hey, what's not right? Instead of the standard, what's wrong? They're not the same questions, right? And they don't lead to the same answers. So that's something to think about. And then, what does perimenopause have to do with all of this? If you are over 40, your hormones are shifting. You know this, whether it feels dramatic or not. All of your hormones are connected and they're in constant communication with each other. And when one starts to shift, the others respond, right? This is why it is irresponsible for uh, for someone to put you on hormone replacement, in my opinion, to put you on hormone replacement, one, and not checking all your other levels, right? For example, being on a high amount of progesterone or estrogen without checking your testosterone, for example. Okay. It's all connected. Everything is connected. The body was brilliantly designed. Okay. So listen, perimenopause, there's no big announcement sometimes, right? Half the time it's a slow fade, right? It's a slow fade. It doesn't just announce itself with like a massive dramatic hot flash where you stick your head in the freezer. Oh, I'm in perimenopause, like I'm having a hot flash. No. I mean, sometimes it looks like I'm waking up consistently between 1 and 3. Wait, I've been tracking this. This has been going on for 3 weeks. What is going on? Sometimes it's your mind is foggier, you have a shorter fuse, you're reacting instead of responding. Of course, the weight changes, right? All of those things. And consistent fatigue is one of those. So, fatigue is one of the most common and most undertreated, and yeah, I'm just going to say it, disrespected symptoms of this hormonal transition for women in midlife. And this is what leads to dismissal, gaslighting, all of that stuff. And because it comes along a stressful season of life, generally, the demands of us as women, we are naturally nurturers and caretakers, aging parents, all of that stuff. It gets written off as it's your lot in life, it's circumstantial, it is what it is, right? It's my season, it's my hormones, it's my age, it's whatever. My grandma had it this way, my mom had it this way. And yes, that's true to a degree, but there's so much we can do to change our gene expression. It doesn't have to be that way. You deserve to understand what your body is telling you. And so the fifth thing I want to talk about is how the spiritual weight that you are carrying. And what I mean by that is you've most likely built your identity around being needed as this caretaker, as this leader, as this person who shows up and consistently says yes, who is the one that everybody calls on and leans on and reaches for first, thinks of first, as, hey, I need help. I've got to call her, right? You're capable. You are faith filled and you're holding everything together. Again, you look great on the outside. You're juggling all the plates on the outside, and on the inside, your body is literally crying. And so the idea of slowing down or not doing, it's it just feels like it goes against the grain of who you are. Everything you are wired to do. Like you feel like this is your identity. Well, this is just who I am. I don't say no. I always say yes. But rest is not weakness. Rest is biblical. Jesus modeled this, right? And it's not laziness by any means. And you know you're not lazy because you're constantly doing. So you would never consider yourself lazy. And yet, when you sit down for a few minutes, your mind is like, I should be, I should be, I should be. But rest, according to God, who created us, is not optional. It's literally all throughout the Bible. He tells us to rest. Remember from the very beginning, the very first book of the Bible, he modeled Sabbath. He modeled resting from work on the seventh day. And so, in our go-go driven world and mentality and mindset, we don't feel like we can afford the time to rest, but we can't afford not to rest. We cannot afford to take the time to not rest and to break away. And God knows this. He told us this right from the beginning. And then he reminds us throughout the Bible. Psalm 23, Matthew 11, 28 through 30, right? Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden. I will give you what? More work? No, rest. So it's literally throughout the whole Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, it is a call on our lives that as high achieving, high functioning, faith filled, and driven women, we have been neglecting and we have been overriding it for a long time. That's why I say spiritual fatigue is the most dangerous type of fatigue because it pulls us away from our creator. It pulls us away from our source. Your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. That is a stewardship responsibility. We are called to steward our wellness. The the drive that you have, the ambition that you have, the doing, the achievement, the caretaking, the nurturing, that is not wrong. You were created for those things. But when busyness becomes the default and productivity becomes more of the identity, you suffer. Your body and your brain suffers. And we are not truly stewarding our wellness when we override that. Our body is giving us signals. It's telling us what we need. This is why, for me personally, when I feel like I've gone too heavy the other way into the doing, the performing, all of that, I literally crave to be near water. Like that's just what fills me. That fills me up. It fuels me. I need to get walking in the woods. I need to be in nature. And I will literally say that out loud when I've really pushed it to the limits. Like I just need to go be in the woods. I need to go walk in the woods, or I need to go to a lake or something. So think about that as I'm saying this. What is your spirit calling you towards? So again, spiritual fatigue is the most dangerous because even your spiritual walk with the Lord can feel heavy during this time. So slowing down, resting, breathing, receiving, listening, resting with the Lord, it is directly affected by your nervous system running on high speed, like constant go, go, go mode. Okay. So just consider what I just said about that. And I really want you to talk to the Lord about that, of course. But here's the other thing is most women do not need more discipline. They need clarity. You don't need another, you're already disciplined. You don't need another supplement protocol. You don't need another, you know, morning routine hack trick or whatever on top of everything else that you're already doing and carrying. Okay, we need simplicity. We need to simplify. We need to clarify what it is our body is saying to us. So you're not lacking motivation. You're not lacking the drive. You're lacking answers. What does my body need? So when you look at yourself as a whole person, just like you would somebody else, like what's really going on? Like, let's look at all the components, right? You find the root. And that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. We have to find the root. We need to be aware of what our bodies are telling us. What is your body telling you? It's telling you a story that it may have started the story in 5 years ago. Like it may have started the story 20 years ago. What is the story your body is telling you? And once you understand it, you can stop guessing and finally understand what your body's saying, and then healing can take place. So, this is again what a functional, holistic, whole person approach does: body, mind, and spirit. It finds the root. It it does it asks things like what's not right and what is my body telling me and how did God design my body anyway to work? And how did God design me to rest? What does he say about rest? So I said a lot of things. I probably should have broken this down into 2 episodes, but what are you to do? What is a busy, faith-filled woman in this menopause season, in this midlife season to do? Where can you start? You cannot address what you cannot see. And most women who finally start to get their energy back, they say the same thing to me. They had no idea how bad they felt until they didn't feel so bad anymore. They had no idea how many signals their body had been giving them until they started paying attention to the full picture. And that is why I created the Treasured Wellness Whole Health Journal. Before anything else, clarity needs to come first. It's okay if you have all the tests and you've tried all the things. That's okay. We're simplifying things now. That's good data. It's such good data. And we're doing more than just getting data with this journal, okay? Because this was built specifically for high achieving women who are exhausted, tired of being dismissed, and ready to finally understand what their body has been speaking to them, communicating all along, but you've missed it, because of the drive that you have. And those are all good things. We talked about that, but we have to ask what's not right. This is going to help you track patterns your body is already creating about your sleep, your bowel movements, your energy, your mood, your cycles, your stress response, your symptoms, your reactions to what you eat. Nothing is going to be missed. It is not just great data, but it is helping you to see the connections. You stop operating from confusion, you start operating from clarity, right? Clarity. And then you can start making decisions based off of that clarity instead of the overwhelm and confusion. So root cause requires a foundational approach, and this journal will give you that foundation. And you can see that it is, if you are watching on the YouTube video, you can see that it is packed full of life-changing, life-giving, important information that as you fill out the pages, you will know exactly what your body is telling you, and you will know, you will understand trends, patterns, and it will give you the full picture that you need. Because I used to say I was surviving, I was just in survival mode for so long, and it caught up to me big time. And so you don't want that. You want to see what your body has been telling you all along. So you can go to treasurewellness.com/journal to get that. And I want to leave you with assurance that you are doing enough. You don't need to add another thing to an already full plate. Your mindset could use a shift more than likely to help you understand what your body is telling you, though, right? So this is more of a, oh, I have to, and more, it's less of I have to and more of a I get to. Finally, I get to see and understand what my body's been telling me without diet mentality. I have to make sure that that is clear without diet mentality because chances are you you are doing what God has called you to do and you are faithful. And even if you don't feel like you are doing what God has called you to do with the energy and the excellence that you desire to do it with, you're still doing what God called you to do. And if you're not doing what God called you to do because of your exhaustion and your level of fatigue, then this is your answer to figure that out so that you can then do the thing God's calling you to do, right? The exhaustion you feel is proof that you've been carrying something too heavy for far too long without the right support. I love Hebrews 12. Hebrews 12, 1-3 says, therefore, since we are surrounded, you need to read Hebrews 11 because we need to find out what the therefore is. Excuse me. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. And then we're going to skip all the way down to 12. Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. Make level paths for your feet so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed. Yes and amen. There is a way through your midlife fog and fatigue that does not require you to do more. Hear me on this. It requires you to address the right things that your body has been telling you. And that is exactly what the work I do is all about. So you have spent years learning how to keep going. So have I, until God made me lie down. And that's where the Whole Health Journal was born. And so this is your invitation to understand what your body has been trying to tell you. This journal was created for you, right? You're ready to stop managing symptoms. You are ready to start recognizing the deeper patterns that are driving your exhaustion, your lack of sleep, your inflammation, your brain fog, your emotional depletion, right? You're losing your joy and you're more reactive, all of it, right? And it's not through hustle culture, diet mentality, or through another hard to follow protocol. No, it is through discernment and stewardship and restoration from the root. Why? Because this is not something you just have to live through. Your body is not failing you. It is not falling apart. You do not have to live like this. You can have clarity. Hmm. You can have God-given clarity. So take a deep breath, take a sacred pause, and seek the Lord over everything that you heard today, because there's always hope in God's kingdom. Now remember, you are a beautiful treasure. Your body is a temple. Your body's a temple. So treasure your wellness. And if you like this video and you want more, be sure to subscribe to this Treasured Wellness channel so you don't miss a thing. See you next time.